back in the 90s, you know, you pretty well could see there was quite a few clubs like Grand Central, Tornadoes / Crackers / Crackers 2. There was the Upstairs Club. A lot of these nice venues. And, you know, and every so often some other ones would pop up. There was one on Bell's Corners, the place that we backed up Jeff Healey, that was Straits. Roxanne's. We never played Roxanne's, but Roxanne's ended up opening up this Hippodrome, which was like a 1,200 seat place. So, you know, there was all these places that we would frequent, and then we'd go see bands, local bands, and then they'd come out and see us. So that's the scene I remember that I liked the most. I don't think there was really much for original tunes in the rock scene around Ottawa, other than Zaphods. And I think that was pretty well it. Now, you know, Ottawa, it's got the Mavericks and Café de Cuff for the rock. I'd say the Rainbow, of course, for blues, and it's original. But I don't think there's, and if you get out of town, of course, the Black Sheep Inn for originals. But other than that, you're still looking at the places where, if you can find a venue now, I don't think there's that many live venues anymore. You're basically going to be a cover band. Going back in the older days, I didn't have a very good paying job, and kind of was dependent a little bit on the earnings. And of course, Luke was very dependent on the earnings. That was actually his livelihood when he first joined us. And then if you wanted to play frequently, you'd have to be a cover band. The clubs back then, and even, well, now I don't even think, even if you're a full-time cover band, you're going to have to go out of town a lot. It's hard for me to say, though. I haven't visited lately in Toronto, because I know back in the old days, of course, the Gasworks, the famous Gasworks, which I went to a few times. And there was also Rock and Roll Heaven. These are establishments that have shut down now, and I don't know what's taken over. I know I've gone to Montreal a few times to see bands in some of the bars. They would get nice crowds, big crowds. And now I don't know if that's just because the venue would just bring these people out. One of the things is like Grand Central. A lot of these other venues, they depend on you to bring out friends and family and whatever. Grand Central was one of these clubs where basically you didn't have to bring your own crowd. There was always a crowd there. You know, there was usually an average of 400 people, which was great, right? And then if you brought your friends, then it's 500 or 600 people. So yeah, we're talking a club that doesn't exist anymore. So, you know, unfortunately, I think nowadays it's basically you have to depend on your friends or fans. You have fans to come out to help promote your band and maybe the scene. In the scene around Ottawa, I don't really see that many people falling off stages or anything like that. I know there's been a few times when we've played stag parties for other musicians, and the booze is flowing, and then you invite friends to come up and play, and then at the end of the night you have to close it off, and you're just. I remember one time when my thought was, please don't fall off the stage. Please don't fall off the stage. That's the only thing I was thinking of. But most of the other times, because you want to be able to play your instrument well and sing well, then you tone back the rock and roll. You're not a Van Halen 1980. If we had made it like really young or something like that, I could see myself being kind of one of those guys that might have burned out. In a way, it's kind of good that didn't happen. But in the old days, I'm talking old days, early 80s, and this is when I was first going to bars, you would see a little bit more of the people, kind of having the drinks. And, we still have drinks when we're on stage. We've got our little cup holders and all that sort of stuff. But then we don't get obliterated, so they're like, and then you don't make any sense, right? So I think the musicians nowadays are a little more respectful of what, they're being respectful to their audience, really. I know one time I was out in the audience and I slipped on the floor, ended up on my back, but I was still playing. And my brother ended up yelling to the audience, it's all part of the show, folks. Don't worry about him. Where's Mike has never been like, oh, okay, you should be standing here at this part of the song, or we should all have our guitars swing like this. It's kind of a ad-lib performance. Hey, you never know what's going to happen. The furthest Where's Mike as a unit has played is Kentville or Cornwall. You'd have to ask my brother. He remembers a lot of the names of these bars. We used to do Dunrobin. It was called Pictures, I believe. We did the Cornwall gig. We did Kentville. There used to be the Kentville Hotel, which actually was kind of a lot of fun to play when you had a crowd. Some other venues outside of Ottawa, but the farthest I'd say was Cornwall. I've got a lot of fond memories, but I think actually one of the best one was when we first got a show at Grand Central. So this was a place we were actually trying to get in a while. I think we'd given out packages, and it was before our CD. Just by coincidence, we happened to be rehearsing on a Friday night, which was very unusual. The phone was, we had stopped the song, and then the phone was ringing, and I said, I'll get it. And it was this agent who would book us at certain clubs. But anyway, so he phones, this is like 9 o'clock Friday night. I need a band for a show. And I go, like, where? Goes Grand Central, tonight. And I'm like, ah! So I went back to the boys and go, guys, you want to play Grand Central tonight? And they go, for real? Yeah. And I remember Ian was just kind of new to the band. This was in the fall, so he had joined in the spring. So this was going to be a second show with us, but we only had 2 sets of material with him. But since it was 9 o'clock, we had to pack everything up. We rushed over, you had to get the sound check, so by the time everything was said and done, it was late enough, and it was a good sized crowd. I'd say it was probably about 400 to 500 people. I just remember we started with Mama, Genesis. Mama blew the crowd away, just right off the start. Boom! And I'd say, to me, that was the most memorable show. But a lot of these pubs now have closed down. The thing we don't like doing anymore is that we used to bring our own PA into some of these establishments, and it's a big pain that we don't have a sound tech like some of the bigger bands would have. Friends of ours in a band called US, and they're now based in the US. At least they have a sound guy, they got the van, and they do the touring, but that's their full-time gig. Ask Luke about that, because he joined them actually for a 6-week tour down in the States, and he had a lot of fun, man. I think when he was with us with Where's Mike, playing live used to be a lot of work, just because basically you have to bring everything, right? So you had to bring a mixer, and in fact, I ended up doing most of everybody did their part, but I did a lot more. I'd usually show up earlier. I'd start running the mic cables. I'd usually have the mixer with me, so getting all the cables plugged in, getting the mic set up, and then Luke usually had the big vehicle, so he'd bring the speakers. Everybody bring their equipment. I'd have to bring my own equipment as well. So now, of course, with like Greenfields as an example, because that's where we're playing most of the time, I bring my amp, I bring my guitars, I plug in, and that's it. Whereas Luke, well, he does, as he says, he does it for the kids. Brings the big drum set, the gong, he has the placement for the gong and his drums, and it's a show. It's an event.